know that Street Fighter Five is basically coming. It's basically becoming a wrap for it. We're basically on the last leg of this game, and everybody's anticipating Street Fighter Six. Which I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm ready to see Street Fighter Six. I mean, I'm happy for Street Fighter Five, what it did and stuff like that. We got to see some amazing gameplay, got some amazing memories and stuff for it. But it's time to move on, in my opinion. And this is kind of pertaining to that. Somebody basically saying on Twitter, at Rich You Heard actually tweeted out. He said Street Fighter Five doesn't get enough credit. It had frame data built in, cross-play out the box, DLC accessible by in-game currency, getting rid of options select meta, pretty good character balance. Yeah, the online leaves a lot to be desired, but Street Fighter V is a great game. So he said that, of course, with topics like this, people on FGC Twitter is going to respond. And, just looking at it, I mean, when you look at these, like, when you just on paper, you hear a lot of that in sports. Like, on paper, these things sound amazing, but, when it's actually carried out, people can have, like, a difference of opinion on it. So, starting with you, Mr. Game and Lift, what did you think when you read this tweet? You think, just looking back on it right now, we're at the end of the rope of Street Fighter V, was it actually a better of a game than people like to give it credit for? Your opinion?
Okay, so Street Fighter Five has an interesting place in my, I don't know if I want to say my heart. That might be too strong of a word, but it's an interesting game. The game came out in a very interesting state. Didn't have a lot of content, about what 16 characters or so. Again, it did have crossplay out the box. And it was a pretty. I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I really enjoyed the game. As the game progressed, you got more characters in the game. Things got, they were even more fresh. You got V triggers and different things like that, V skills. Um, but I don't know. If I'm being honest, man, I feel like Street Fighter Five kind of, it's a solid game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna say it's a terrible game, but for me personally, I still prefer Street Fighter Four. There's some things about this game that were kind of iffy for me. One of the worst things about it, that in my personal experience, the crossplay, the online was terrible. Like, anytime you tried to play someone from PS4 to PC, it was terrible, absolutely terrible. I don't know if it's changed now, but at one point it was just like it's unplayable. You go on the CFN and sometimes you can't even really find matches that are decent. Like, every time my recent experiences playing the game online, it was just jittery. So as far as the online goes, if I had to rank it, I'd probably give it like a C minus or like a, something like that, because it was okay, but a lot of the times it just wasn't a good experience. And I mean, a lot of people said it about the PS4 version. It seemed like the PC, if you did PC to PC, it was better, but I never actually got to experience the PC version. I will say having the frame data and all that stuff in it was actually really good. Like, because I think most fighting games nowadays need that, having the frame data in the game out the box, going to trainer mode, seeing the hit boxes, seeing the hurt boxes, all that stuff was actually pretty good. And I think like a lot of games started following suit. Probably NRS is probably one of the first ones to kind of like really set the standard for that. So having that in the game nowadays, kind of like you need that, because people want to see like what's punishable, what's not punishable, things of that nature. Um, Content, I mean, had a lot of content. I mean, we had so many costumes. Like, don't get me started on the costumes. Ryu and Chun Li had like 1,000 costumes apiece. You had some you had some cool, like, you had like the Beautiful Joe stuff for Rashid. The what else did you have? Like the Mega Man costumes. You had Captain Commando costumes, Devil May Cry costumes. Those are all pretty dope. I must admit, a lot of those costumes are pretty cool. But I know he mentioned in his tweet about the fight money, like the in-game currency. Yeah, you could get so with the fight money, but it took you so long to do so that at some point it was kind of just like, it's not even worth it. You might as well just spend real money, because it took you forever to like earn fight money to buy something like worth anything. Like, if you wanted to buy a character, it was like 100,000 fight money, and it took forever to get that unless you were doing like the trials. But if you've done all the trials, you can't do it anymore. So that to me was kind of like, it was cool at first, but once you get everything, it's like at that point you just might as well buy it with real money. But as far as like going into Street Fighter 6, I'm ready for it. I mean, we got Big Luke, the first the first face of what apparently Street Fighter 6 is gonna be. So, and apparently Luke has been pretty decent. I've heard people say that, like, I've been seeing a lot of Luke, like he's apparently pretty decent. So
Yeah, I've
that's
been
kind of
seeing people say
cool.
he up in A tier, at least.
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of cool to see, like, and apparently a face of Street Fighter 6 being pretty decent. Because it would have probably been kind of bad if he'd come in like, this is the face, one of the faces of Street Fighter 6, but he's bottom tier. Everybody's like, man, this how we started Street Fighter 6 out, with a bottom tier character. So I just hope that Street Fighter 6 gets a complete overhaul, like with mechanics and stuff. I mean, we're already seeing some things that Luke has that are probably going to be in Street Fighter 6 in terms of his mechanics. So yeah, I think my feeling right now is Street Fighter 6 is going to be like a third strike. It's going to be like what's the word I want to use? It's going to be like a reinvention of Street Fighter again, like Third Strike was. So, and I'm down for it. So, but yeah, man, Street Fighter 5 is on its way out, man. Hopefully at some point, maybe by the end of this year or early next year, we see some on Street Fighter 6. Cause I'm ready, man. Big Luke, time for him to shine, man.
Hey man, you was talking about them costumes for Chun-Li and Ryu. Man, that's the first man and first lady of Street Fighter, man. So they had to just get them everything. You might as well, just how much Capcom puts them at the forefront. They might as well have got married or something. But but Ryu, he only loves and married to the fight. So that's all he worried about. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at reading his tweet and what he said. I mean, like I said before when I was like introducing the topic, when you look at all this stuff on paper, like if they was even to release a game like that today, I mean, crossplay, the characters are very, very balanced. What else did he say? In-game currency to buy the DLC, and all that other stuff. You'd be like, oh, okay. But nowadays you have to have that rollback or rollback netcode stamp on it. But with all those other things, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's a decent game. But it's like when you kind of get down into the nitty gritty of it, like when you start talking about the crossplay, I mean that has to do with a lot with the netcode and stuff like that. And we know that's not the best, as Mr. Gamer Lift has made sure to let us know whenever there's a Street Fighter 5 topic. I will say, like, as with the Street Fighter 5, as it went along through its lifetime, you did more often see like a lot of people coming in with like unique character choices. I mean, we were seeing recently a Fang run through, and do pretty good work. We got to see a good variety of characters and stuff like that. I mean, you see the right people. You got Kens, running through there. Now since Ryu got kind of buffed, I mean, people are more so experimenting with him and stuff like that. Big Luke came in the game and stuff like that. So we seeing all types of variety and stuff like that with the characters and stuff. I be confused. Like I kind of took a little bit of break from the FGC, during our whole break. But I was seeing people talk about Oro when I came back, and I was confused. Like, so do people like him or do they hate him? I'm confused. Like, But so yeah, it's a lot of variety. So I agree with him with the characters and stuff like that. With stuff kind of being mostly balanced. I mean, it's not like I remember with MVC3 when you came in the tournaments. Like, yeah, you had people that would come with like unique stuff, unique characters, and you always was seeing like some wonky stuff. But most times you was kind of seeing the same things. I mean, the same characters and stuff like that. And I think you get more variety with Street Fighter 5 than you do like a game with MVC3. So yeah, I mean, looking back on it, Street Fighter 5 fondly. Because, a lot of times people have such, like, nearsightedness. I mean, before COVID really hit, Street Fighter 5, with stuff being offline, Street Fighter 5 was really, really enjoyable. It was a good game. It was straight. But, it had its things just like every other game people are going to complain about. But it was good. But just after a while, a little bit even before COVID hit, but especially with COVID hit, it kind of got to a point where people were kind of like, all right, we're ready for the next thing, And then next thing you know, that news came out of like, oh, well, they brought up Street Fighter 6, and people was like, I ain't feeling it, so we fired everybody, and, and we gonna do it over again. So
Wow.
so you know that, I mean, that just is what it is. That and COVID. I mean, what you know what you want Capcom to do? Just release another bare bones Street Fighter Five. You know, and I'll say, with that being said, like how far they came from a bare bones Street Fighter Five. I mean, my goodness, like they've done really well at polishing this game. So you know, I mean, if Street Fighter Cross Tekken would have did what they wanted it to do, Street Fighter Five would probably have a much better rap than we give it today. So yeah, that's my take on it. I felt like I went forever, but you know, if I did, y'all listened. If you made it this far, but
I feel
so,
like I was a little long winded too, but
so yeah, man. I mean, I will give it that. Like Street Fighter Five, we can't look back. I don't think we'll look back on it and be like that game was trash. I think we'll more so look back on it after a while and be like that was a solid game. Especially from where they bought it from, where it ended at. It was a pretty solid game. We got everything that we could out of it. We got some amazing new, you know, people coming in, new generation of players coming in to play the game. It was solid. I mean, it was solid for what it was, for the hand that it was dealt when it came to be given to us. It was a solid game. So anything you want to add, Mr. Gamer?